Hi, this is Linda Gail Lewis, and you're listening to Retrospectives with John Broughton on KC Radio 97.7 FM.
Yes, darling.
Just looking back on your childhood, though, the first music to really grab your attention as a young girl growing up.
Well, my brother's music, of course, because he played all the time at home. He was always playing and singing just for hours every day. When I was a small child, that was my first memory of music, that and the music in the church.
Mm-hmm. And how important a role would you say music played in your home growing up?
Well, I mean, it was everything to us because everything was centered around my brother and his music. And my mother and daddy always said, when Jerry makes it, he will help us. They never, ever said, if he makes it. So it was always understood that he would be successful. And sure enough, of course, when he did get us from the poverty that we were living in. He brought us out of that. And but everything was centered around my brother. And, I loved him so much then, and I still love him so much now. And he was always at the center of everything.
You were a struggling family before your brother's success, but he was very quick to share the fruits of his success with you all, wasn't he?
Just when he got his very first check. When he got his first check, it was $40,000, and he called up to my aunt's house, and of course we didn't have a telephone, so we went out to my aunt's house so that my mother could talk to him, and he said, "Mama, I got a check from Sam Phillips for $40,000, and I want to share everything I make with you and Daddy and Linda Gail and Frankie Jean." So, the next thing I knew, we was living in a beautiful house in Faraday. We moved from Black River. We was living in a sharecropper shack down on Black River. Mm-hmm. And we moved from that sharecropper shack and from the riverbank there into this beautiful brick home in Faraday. And then, of course, he gave Mama $1,000 in cash to go get clothes for me and her and Frankie Jean at Doris's dress shop in Faraday. Because, Mom only had 2 dresses. She had one dress to wear to church and one to wear at home. That was all she had. So we just went to Darcy's dress shop and bought everything they had in our sizes. And, of course, then the next thing he told Mama she was going to need a new car. And, of course, he'd put beautiful furniture in our home. We had everything. It had a bathroom on the inside instead of, the outdoor toilet, and had taken a bath in a tin tub on the porch. That was pretty brutal. But the next thing he said to her was, "I think you're going to need to get a new car, Mama." And so she said, "Son, I'll do that." And 2 or 3 days later, he called back and he said, "Mama, did you get a Ford or a Chevrolet?" She said, "No, son, I got a Fleetwood Cadillac." So from that day on, from every single year of her life, when the new Cadillacs came out, my brother would get her a brand new Fleetwood Cadillac.
Wow. Did he ever sit you down directly and teach you much about his piano style?
The only real lessons that I got from him was when we was in Germany one time. We were playing in this venue that was where they had a lot of concert pianists play and classical music and stuff. And we had a lot of pianos backstage, and Jerry had one, of course, in his dressing room. And so I sat down at the piano with him and I asked him to show me a couple of things on the piano, and I'll never forget it. And this was in the 70s. And he said, "I'm going to show you this. I'm only going to show you one time, so don't ask me again." And he showed me this thing that I could do that would help me to play boogie woogie and rock and roll piano. And I never forgot it. And then sure enough, when it came time that I needed that, and I was having my own band and started my solo career, I had to develop what he had shown me, and thank God I was able to remember it. And I did develop it, and thank God he gave me that lesson.
Now, I guess this probably would be a difficult question to answer because it's purely hypothetical, but had you grown up in a different family and you weren't the sister of Jerry Lee Lewis, do you think you still would have pursued music?
I don't know. One thing I do know, John, is I really love music a lot, and I've always loved to sing. I love to sing, and I was never really that into playing the piano much. I just played a little bit. I knew how to make chords on the piano, and I did like to write songs. And so I would sit at the piano and play chords and write songs, and I always enjoyed all of that. So I think there's a good possibility that I would have been involved in music anyway, even if I'd been in another family.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were just a young teenage girl when you went on the road with your brother. What are your standout memories of those years?
Oh, I was just so happy because all I ever wanted to do was be in show business. All I ever wanted to do was be on the road with my brother, be on stage and sing, and I loved the lifestyle, even though, I guess you have to be a little bit crazy to love that lifestyle. Being up late at night and sometimes being up all night and driving just thousands of miles on a tour. But I loved it. I loved it so much, and I was so happy to be there, and that was, I was on the road with him for 15 years.
At any point during those 15 years, were you harboring ambitions to get out on your own and do your own thing?
No, I was never thinking about that. I just thought my place was to be there with my brother, and I was happy. He paid me really well. He took care of me, and anything I wanted, I had. So I didn't really think about ever leaving him. It was just something that happened that I had no choice about it.
Did you learn things about your brother as a person, being on the road and working with him, that you may not have known beforehand, living at home?
I've learned a lot about him, but John, nobody can really know exactly what goes on in the mind of a genius. Mm. And my brother is a genius, and I will never know what it's like to have just a regular brother, because he's not just a regular guy. He's not just a regular person. He's a musical genius. He's a great entertainer, and he's a complicated man. And I do spend as much time with him as I possibly can. But as far as ever knowing exactly what's going on with him, I don't know if anyone will ever know that. I love him so much, but I can't say that I know everything, because, as sure as I say that, he will sometimes say something to me that totally surprises me. It does happen. It still happens. And of course, my relationship with him is very complicated, because not only am I his sister and I love him as a family member, I'm also a person who just worships the ground he walks on as an entertainer, piano player, singer, stylist, all of that. So I'm a fan. I'm a fan as well as a sister, so it's complicated.
Yeah, it sure is. You first recorded with him way back in 1963. That you must have some wonderful memories of that.
Well, I was just thrilled, to be on record with him. But, I was never that happy with my vocal performance on that song. But a lot of people like it, so I'm proud to have done that and have been on Sun Records. It's my only Sun release. It's Seasons of My Heart. So I am glad that we did it.
And the country album you did with him in the late 60s, that really stands up well today. What do you recall of those sessions?
Now, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We just went in the studio, and we just had a lot of fun. I tell people all the time, my duo partner now, Robbie Fox, he'll say, Linda, it's so weird that you sang this cheating song, Don't Let Me Cross Over, with your brother. And I said, well, we didn't think anything about that being weird. We just thought it was funny. And the problem that we had recording the song is that we'd crack up and start laughing because Pig Robbins was playing piano on it. So Jerry was standing up at the same microphone that I was. Mm-hmm. And when I dive in to sing my part, Jerry said I looked like a fish diving for a hook or something. And he just thought that was the funniest thing. And he would crack up and start laughing every time. Honestly, I don't think we got through the song but one or two times. And that had to be the cut because we couldn't sing it without cracking up. And when we did it on TV, of course, we did it on the Mike Douglas show, I was looking out at the audience. If I'd started looking at Jerry, we'd have probably gotten tickled again. And that wouldn't have been good on network television.
Now, you took some time away from music in the 70s. What prompted that move for you?
Well, I had some problems. You know, I lost my mother, and that was really hard for me because I'd been with her my whole life. And when she passed away, I had problems. You know, the doctors would prescribe sleeping pills and tranquilizers and stuff like that for me to get through, you know, the hard times. But then what happens with something like that, and I wasn't educated about drugs at that time, and I didn't know that a doctor would give you a prescription for something that could ever cause you a problem. I never thought about that. But what happens with those kinds of drugs is that you take them, and then you need more of them, and you need more of them, and then they stop working because you need more. So then you end up getting another doctor. I think in my case, I had like 3 doctors giving me the prescription. So I ended up, you know, being physically and mentally addicted to sleeping pills. So then I had to go in the hospital and stop that. And that, you know, that was the 70s, and this is 2019, and I haven't taken another sleeping pill since then. Praise the Lord.
Yeah. Reading other interviews with you, you have been very open in talking about those years of drug dependency. Was there a turning point, a defining turning point when you knew you were going to get out of this situation?
Well, yes, and you know, I only had that for about a year that I had the drug problems. And then after I got everything straight and got myself straightened out, I was still on the road with my brother. But then, you know, I started thinking, this isn't such a happy life. There's maybe something else that's better than this. Mm. So then I decided at that point in time that I would just stay at home with my then husband, and I had, of course, started having children again, and I had my daughter Annie and my son Oliver. And I ended up staying at home for 10 years.
So when did you know the time was right to come back and pursue music again?
I always knew that it was going to be a problem, because even during the first few months of that decision, if I ever thought about being on stage or being on the road or doing anything creative like recording or writing songs, I would have to immediately put that out of my mind and not think about it. Because if I thought about it, it would make me very depressed. And so I'd just have to try not to think about it. And as the years went on, it got harder and harder. And then I remember, you know, that I went to see my brother during that time a few times. And I just wanted so much to be back on the road. Mm. And I finally just gave in and said, to heck with it.
So when you began performing live in your own right, headlining your own shows, would you say you were a pretty confident stage performer right from the start?
You know, I was. I had people tell me, well, I had one friend that made me sit down and watch a video of Whitney Houston. And she said, you see, this woman is young, and she's thin, and she can dance, and she can sing her ass off. You're none of those things. This is crazy. You'll never make it. And I guess my mother and daddy, when we was kids, just brought us up to believe that we could do whatever we decided to do as far as music is concerned, because I didn't believe that woman for a minute. And I saw her about 4 years ago, and I started to ask her, do you remember what you said to me? Because I was opening for my brother at the Ryman Theater, and I had a great night. It was a really wonderful night. I'll never forget that. And I was so happy, and I thought, if I'd listened to her, I wouldn't be here at the Ryman doing this. This would never have happened. But no, I guess I just never did think that there was a possibility of that I would totally fail.
Yeah.
Because I learned things about the music business, and then I met my husband, Eddie Braddock, and he started helping me, and he's like super smart, and of course he grew up in the business too, because he was a promotion man for Stax Records, and he was the first guy to get the Otis Redding and Carla Thomas and all those people's music onto the top 40 radio stations. So he's a legend in his own right, and so he's helped me so much with giving me advice, and we learned a lot about roots music. So that's where I started marketing myself after I met I had met him before, but after I married my husband and he started advising me, I started playing a lot more in Europe and playing to roots music audiences, and it's worked out really well.
Do you think perhaps being a late starter in terms of a solo career has been something of an advantage for you, in the sense that you've had all those years of experience viewing other people's careers, your brother's career? Has that made you better prepared?
Oh, well, yeah, I was prepared because, I had all that experience of being on the road with my brother, and that was wonderful. Those were wonderful years, and I learned a lot, from one of my ex-husbands that was my husband's road manager. I learned about, how you sometimes have to get the money before you go on. And I learned a lot from him about things like that, which you do have to know how to get the money.
Yeah.
Especially when you're playing at the level that we all do in roots music. You've got to make sure you get paid. And the other thing that I learned was, my brother never did really let anything upset him and spoil his show. I remember one time, he did this show in Martin, Tennessee, and I was in retirement at that time. This was probably about a year before I went back on the road with him. But I'm at this gig, and he's got 25 people. And it was the craziest thing that Jerry D. Lewis had 25 people. But it was one of those weird things where they charged too much for the tickets, they didn't advertise, and everything had gone wrong with this gig. And I'm looking at my brother, and he puts on these beautiful cowboy boots, and this beautiful suit that must have cost $2,000 or something. And he walks out in front of those 25 people and does the most amazing show. So every time I have one of those things that happens to me, and thank God it doesn't happen that often, but when it does, I just say, you know what? Jerry D. Lewis played for 25 people, and he did a great show. So I am certainly never going to be as good as he is. So I'm definitely going to follow his example, though. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do my best if it's only two people, because they paid to get in. They're here for the show. So that was one lesson that I learned from him, and I'll never forget that. And, of course, the other thing I learned from him was how to read the audience. I've watched him so many times. I've been on stage with him and seen how he looks out at the audience, and he can always figure out what he needs to do. It's like the other day I was with my brother. I was spending the day with him. It was the Wednesday before I played Nashville Boogie on the Friday. So I was in Memphis spending the day with him, and these crazy people were sending me these emails about song lists and stuff, and the band was complaining because they wanted to know exactly what songs I was going to do. And my brother and I were laughing about that. And I said, Jerry, how in the world can I tell them what I'm going to do? He said, yes, how can you tell them? Because you don't even know, do you? And I said, no, I don't know. He said, and you won't know until you're there with the audience and figuring out what you need to do. I said, well, that's exactly right. And, I don't pay any attention to the guys. I just go ahead and do what I need to do.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. I've spoken to a lot of artists through the years that have had young families, trying to balance their family life with their working life. How did you manage during your when your kids were growing up?
It's just like Loretta Lynn said, and like Wanda Jackson has said before to me. We've sat and talked about that. There is no way to balance it. You're always going to suffer. Your kids are going to suffer. And like Wanda said, now my grandchildren suffer. And, and I miss my dog, too. There's times I have to be away from my husband. There is no way around that. You can't balance it, really. It's going to hurt everybody. It does. And to this day, sometimes I feel guilty about leaving my children so much. But there was no other way to do this.
Yeah. You recorded a wonderful album with Dan Morrison quite a few years ago now. You Win Again. Now tell us about how that came to be.
Van had a little problem with writing songs. He had a little bit of writer's block, and so he was trying to do some things with other people to still have some albums coming out. And he had done the Skiffle album with Lonnie Donegan. So then, of course, he would have loved to have done an album with my brother. But, Jerry D. Lewis is not going to record a duets album with anybody except me. He did one with me.
Yeah, he did.
I was in the UK, and my husband and I were at the King's Hotel. And we met in Newport, Wales. And we met Van there, and I was doing a show there. And so then Van came up with the idea that he thought it would be good if we did some recording together. But Of course, I didn't know exactly what he had in mind, but he was paying me really well just to come and try out some songs and stuff with him. I was a bit shocked when he said at the end of it, well, I think this is good enough that we can, release this we can have an album. So I was really quite surprised by that. I didn't expect that to happen, really. Because, Van likes to cut live on the floor, and I was there trying to figure out how to phrase the stuff with him and his very different style of singing. And he is one of the greatest singers in the world. But he has a very different way of phrasing and singing. And that's what makes him so great. But it's not so easy when you're playing the piano and you're watching somebody and singing with them, and all of this stuff is happening, and the drummer's playing in a drum booth, but every other instrument that is on that record is live on the floor. It's happening. It's just like doing a live show. And I thought, and honestly, when we did the recordings, I said, this will never come out. And I was very relaxed, though, because I thought, I'm being paid really well to do this. I'm just going to have a good time because this is not going to amount to anything. So I was really quite surprised that the album came out, and I went on the road with him. My daughter and I did. My daughter, Annie Marie Lewis, and I went on the road with him for about a year. It was just about a year. And then, of course, it was time for me to put my rock and roll shoes back on and move on to my next project.
Yeah. He has a reputation for being a somewhat difficult personality at times to work with. Did you find that at all?
He didn't become difficult to us until he knew for sure that we were leaving. He wanted me to do this Louis Prima style music with him, and he thought it would be so great. And he was playing me these recordings from Louis Prima and the piano playing and stuff on it. I'm not saying that I couldn't do it. I mean, I could do it, but I would. When I played with him that year, John, I just almost killed myself learning songs and stuff, and I had to learn a totally different style of piano. Now, Van gave me a choice. He said, you can do the album songs from You Win Again with me, and you can leave the stage, and we'll have another piano player come on and play my songs. And I thought, that's going to make people think I can't play his songs.
Yeah.
And my ego couldn't deal with that. So I just killed myself learning. I learned about 150 songs. And then I thought, I was overwhelmed to think about that Louis Prima stuff. I thought, that will be hard, to have to learn all those different kinds of piano licks. I just wouldn't enjoy it. And so I gave my notice.
Fair enough, yeah. Now, you mentioned your daughter, Annie Marie, another generation in the family making music. Tell us a bit about her, and has she come to you for career advice in terms of how to conduct her music?
I'm an overprotective, meddling mother and meddling mother-in-law. I'm so fortunate that my son-in-law loves me. But they don't have to ask me anything. I'm telling them all the time. But my daughter and my son-in-law went with me to do the Nashville Boogie, and they were also with me at Viva Las Vegas. I have them with me on the road every chance I get. And then occasionally, like we went to Germany last summer, and they just wanted the two girls. They just wanted me, and they wanted Annie. So we do a little bit of everything together. But, yeah, I give her a lot of advice. But, she's really smart, and she appreciates it. She's not a know-it-all. She doesn't think she knows it all, and she's always anxious to learn new things. And I'm so proud of her because she is an absolutely great singer. I love her voice, and she's really good on stage.
Now, you wrote a book about 20 years ago about your life, your family, your brother. Tell us about that experience.
Well, it was okay, John. I would really like to write another book because that guy that was my ghostwriter was a really crazy guy. And he put some stuff in the book that I didn't even say. And it wasn't a lot, but I would say a good 30% of it, 30 or 40% of it was stuff that he got mixed up and just added in his own voice. Sometimes he'd say something like it was me talking, and it didn't sound anything like me talking. So I was disappointed about that, but I did my best to promote it, and I would really like to write another book because after that book came out, my career really started taking off. After that book, I had the tour with Shakin' Stevens, and I had the album with Van Morrison, and things were just, I had a Sanctuary Castle release on Boogie Woogie Country Gal. It did really well in the UK, yep. And things were just really picking up. And then, of course, now, I've had this wonderful experience with Robbie Fox, and he is, that's working with another genius. He is a genius. There's no doubt about that. And he's just a wonderful person and so talented. So all of these things have happened. So much more has happened now. I need to write another book, and I don't know if I can do it or not, because I simply will not have another crazy person writing it for me. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I won't do that again.
Let's talk about your collaboration with Robbie Fox. What has he brought to the table that's made him a great collaborator for you?
I've learned so much from Robbie, and the thing about me and Robbie is that we have so much chemistry in the studio and on stage together. We just absolutely have so much fun when we're playing and singing together. And Robbie is the greatest songwriter in the world today for the kind of music that I do, especially. I mean, he's like the Hank Williams of today. I am so amazed by his songs. And the songs that he has written for me to do, I was absolutely thrilled. And I'm still just so excited about that project, even though it's been going on for probably 3 years now, because it took us 2 years to do the album. Yeah. And then we've been working together. We've been touring together for about a year. And we've got some shows coming up together, pretty soon now. And I one of the main things that I've learned from Robbie is I've always been pretty good at telling my stories and stuff and talking to people on stage. But Robbie takes that to another level, and I've learned. I think I'm better now at that, and I think I'm funnier now because Robbie is so funny. He just makes everybody laugh so much. The guy is amazing. I mean, when you think about it, there's nobody in the world that can do flat picking on an acoustic guitar like Robbie Fox. He's the best, in my humble opinion. He's the best. And then there's the thing about that he is a great singer. He's great. The way he phrases, the way he sings, it is so wonderful, the way he sings. I just love his voice and his phrasing. And then there's the other thing, that he's extremely funny. The guy is a comedian. He's a genius comedian because none of that's planned. None of that's written. He just goes on stage and looks out at the audience and comes up with these jokes and things just on the spur of the moment. And then the other thing that he can do is if he gets into a situation that he really finds amusing at a gig, he'll just on the spot write a song about it.
Wow.
It's just the most amazing thing. We were at this festival last year. And Robbie looked around at that place that we were in. I didn't really like it much either. But Robbie said, this place looks like a brothel. He said, with all these red lights and everything. And the audience was kind of, not our usual really happy-go-lucky audience. They were a bit weird. And he wrote a song about those people being weird and that place looking like a brothel. And Red Vocart was laughing so hard, he almost fell down. And I almost fell off my piano stool. It was the funniest thing you've ever heard in your life. And even though he was insulting the audience, they absolutely loved it. It was just incredible. And the guy, he's a great showman. He just runs all over that stage and dances and when he's with me. I mean, when he's with me, it's a different show. We have a full band and he can do a lot more than he can do when it's just him and his guitar. And I tell you what, it's a heck of a show.
So the songs he wrote for your album project, did you give him like an advance sort of notice of the type of songs you were looking for, or did he just present them to you straight up?
Robbie went out to lunch with me and my husband here, and he was here for South by Southwest that year. That was about 3 years ago, I guess now. And we went out to lunch, and he said, tell me the kind of rockabilly kind of stuff that you like. And I sang, I told him I really liked that song. I think it was Johnny Horton that did it, On a Honky-Tonk Hardwood Floor. I love that song. Mm-hmm. He said, sing a little bit of that for me, Linda. And we're sitting at this restaurant, and I just started singing it, which is pretty wild, really. So I sang it for him, and he said, I can write you some stuff like that. No problem. So it wasn't long after that I ended up getting material from him. And, of course, the very first thing he sent me was Round Too Long. And I was so happy I cried. I mean, nobody would probably listen to Round Too Long and just sit and cry. because it's not a sad song at all. But I was so happy to get that song from him. That was the first one I got, that I was absolutely just sitting in my chair crying and listening to it. And my husband just flipped over as well. And then I think it was Kelly Hogan that he got to sing that for the demo. And the demo was great. You know, it was a great demo. And when I started learning it, you know, I had to really work hard because Kelly's a great singer, and I had to make sure that I could sing it at least as good as she did.
Sounds as though this won't be the last collaboration between you and Robbie.
I would be very surprised. But we both said that we want to work together more. And we've also said that, and I said this to Robbie, and then he said he felt the same way. I said, you know, Robbie, I do enjoy all my shows. I enjoy everything I do. But the thing that I enjoy the most is when I'm on stage with you. And he said, well, I feel the same way. The thing that I enjoy the most is when I'm on stage with you. So it's a mutual admiration society.
Lovely. You give the impression, in fact, that you are someone that really thrives on the collaborative process, working with others. Is that your preferred way to work?
Well, it's a great thing. It's a great way to work, because when you've got somebody like Robbie who, you know, I've never had a problem with ever being jealous of other people. So I can be generous to another performer. There are some people that can't do that. They want everything to be about them.
Yeah.
But I don't have that hang up. I grew up on stage with Jerry Lee Lewis. I was humbled long ago. So that's never going to happen to me. And I can, of course, I enjoy collaborations. I really do. And, of course, when I have my daughter with me on the road, we do stuff together. And I do thrive on that. You're absolutely right. It's the most wonderful way to work, is because I know we did a show just a couple of weeks ago here in Texas, and we did a lot of gospel music together, and she was singing with me. And then, she was singing lead vocal on some of the stuff, and I was singing with her. And it was absolutely wonderful. And we had such a great time, and I thought, wow, this is great. I do love it. I love having someone work with me.
Yeah. And before I let you go, Linda, what's in your books for the rest of this year, upcoming plans?
Well, I'm pretty busy. I'm going over to Sweden, and I think I've got 23 gigs.
Wow.
But before I go this Friday night, I'm going to play the Bugle Boy in LaGrange, Texas, and then I'm going to take on off for Sweden and do 23 shows. And then I'm coming back here and I think we have 3 shows in Denton, Texas, Austin, Texas, and Houston, Texas, me and Robbie. And then after that, I've got to go right back to Sweden because they wanted me to play a car show there. And it made me so happy what they said, because I had to break up the tour. My agent wanted me to stay through August. And I told him, I said, no, I'm going home and do these shows with Robbie. I mean, I will do that. If I'm in Europe and I'm offered some gigs with Robbie, I'm coming back and doing them every time, no matter what it costs, and no matter how much trouble it is. So when I told my agent that, he told the people at the car show, said, we're going to have to book somebody else. And they said to him, but we don't want anybody else. And I said, okay, well, that's it. I will definitely come back and do it. So I'm coming home, do the gigs with Robbie, and going back to Sweden.
And back to Sweden. Wow, busy times.
And then when I get back here, we have this wonderful festival called Wheatland Festival. It's huge. It's a really big festival up in Michigan. And that's a Robbie Fox and Linda Gail Lewis gig. And so I'll be going and doing that around the 6th and 7th of September. We're playing 2 days there. And then I'll be coming back home and just doing a few things around here and getting ready for my winter tour. But before the winter tour, me and Robbie are going to play in Memphis. And that is going to be a thrill. We're playing Nashville and Memphis, and I think someplace near Atlanta, Georgia. So that's happening in October, I believe. Yeah, that's in October. And then after that, it's my winter tour. I probably will have, 20, 25 gigs in the winter. Oh, and I forgot to mention my French fans. I'm doing a festival in France. While I'm in Sweden, I'm going to fly from Stockholm to this place called Tours. And they have a festival there called the American Festival. the Tours American Festival or something like that. But I talked to Dick Dickerson about it, and he said, Linda, you're going to have a blast, because he's playing it for the second time. And he said they have all these French people dressed up like cowboys and Indians and stuff. So I'm going and play there on July the 6th. So I've got quite a lot going on, and I'm
Busy
very
time,
happy
yeah.
about that.
Well,
It's not boring, John.
No,
There's
not at
nothing
all.
boring about it.
We certainly hope that one day there'll be some shows in Australia on your itinerary too. We'd love to see you down here.
You know, I would love to come, and if there's any promoters that ever hear this, I hope they will have me come over, because I would really love to come back. My daughter and I had so much fun when we were there before.
Yeah, you're certainly due for another trip. We certainly would love to see you again. And I have to ask,
I love it. One of my favorite things about y'all, or I don't know if everybody does this, but the guy that was promoting us, he had this thing that he would say, and I thought it was so cute. He'd say, "Hey, Linda, how you going? How you going?" I
How you
thought,
going?
That's so cute.
That's
Do you say that also, John?
Oh, we all do. That's our everyday greeting. Yeah, how you going?
How you going?
That's it.
Well, that is great.
I have to also ask before I let you go, how's your brother doing? I know he had a bit of a health scare recently.
Oh, John, that was very scary. He had a massive stroke, a hemorrhagic stroke, where you have bleeding in your brain. And it is so amazing. It's a miracle how he is recovering. I spent the day with him recently, and he's up and on his feet and going. He's left the rehab center and gone home now. He's at home now, and I'm so thankful and so happy that he's recovering. That scared the daylights out of me.
Yeah, I'm sure
I almost
it did.
slipped and said something else.
Oh, when you
But
next
it was horrible.
when you next speak to him, please send all love and best wishes from his fans down here in Australia.
Well, I sure will, and I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me today, John.
It's been an honour and a treat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, darling.
Thanks a lot, Linda. Have a great night.
You too, darling.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.